Hey there, everyone. Welcome back. Grit Daily, like a boss. And in the house today, we've got Lisa Bowman. She's the Chief Mojo Officer at Marketing Mojo, and she's the former CMO at the United Way. Here's what's interesting. She describes herself as a marketect. So with that, let's welcome Lisa. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Loralyn, thanks for having me.
Well, let's dive into this first. Chief Mojo Officer. So titles are getting increasingly innovative. Talk to us about yours.
So mine really came from that notion that I bring mojo to what I do, right? Mojo, by definition, is sort of that magical charm. And I think as a marketer, you absolutely have to bring some magic to what you do. Mojo also happens to be, coincidentally, the name of my Alaskan Klekai rescue dog. And there's a really funny story about Mojo getting his name, which is that when we were adopting him, my other half was holding Mojo. And I had walked away for literally 5 seconds. And by the time I came back, he was surrounded by women looking at this dog and going, "Oh my gosh, that's the cutest puppy." To which I responded, "That dog has some mojo." And so Mojo he became.
And it's fun too to people like really get into their brands. The only other person that I know that's had their dog as part of the brand was Scott McNeely, former CEO of Sun Microsystems. He named his dog Java. So it's kind of fun to go with that. All right, tell us a little bit about how Marketing Mojo is different than all the 10,000 other marketing companies out there.
Well, so like you said, I self-brand myself as a marketect. And as a marketect, I build for brands at the intersection of purpose and profit because that is where good business lives. And that's been my career for the past 10 years. What's really unique is that I bring to the table a blend of private sector experience from having had senior roles at UPS, clearly a Fortune 50 company, but also as the head of global marketing for the world's largest nonprofit, United Way. And that's allowed me to really merge those two worlds together and bring a unique perspective to the table.
Now, I love asking my guests this question, which is in around success, because you've clearly already had tremendous success, right, in the public and in the private sector. When I ask and say, okay, so what's next? I love getting the answers. What's next for you, Lisa?
That's a loaded question. The future is uncertain, as my magic eight ball would say. For me, there are a number of things that I am working on right now. Part of what I've been doing with this gap year that I've been taking, courtesy of COVID, is to really lean in as a strategic advisor. But I do know that whatever it is going to be something that, again, fuses together that notion of purpose and profit because that's important to me.
Indeed, if you're not aligned with your own purpose, and how can you represent anyone else's, right?
Exactly.
That's this first step.
Exactly.
Along those lines, what is the advice that you wish someone told you? What do you wish you knew when you were younger?
Oh my gosh, where do I start? Don't overpluck your eyebrows. They won't grow back.
It's
Um,
true, they don't. How is that possible?
if I think about it, I think that if I start at my first real big career job when I started at UPS, I think that like so many other women, we sometimes struggle with recognizing that we've earned a seat at the table. And so if I were speaking to my younger self, what I would tell myself is, you know what? Muscle your way in, make the guys open up their chairs and create a space for yours. You've earned and you own that seat at the table. And that wasn't something I was particularly good at younger. Today, I have no problem with it. I just pull my chair up and will politely look at the people on either side of me and say, "Excuse me, I'd like to sit here too." But I think that's one of the pieces of advice I would give my younger self, in addition to not over plucking your eyebrows.
Fantastic. You heard that, audience. These are two valuable tips here, not just one, two.
Bonus round.
Now, everyone's made pivots. You've just alluded to that here a few moments ago with respect to the gift that has been COVID and forcing so many businesses to take a fresh look at what they're doing and for individuals to re-examine not only what their purposes are, but how they're approaching things in business and in life. You want to talk to us about some of the pivots that you've recently made?
Sure. I think the first pivot that I made, candidly, was making the decision to leave the safety and security of a role at a Fortune 50 company to go fully into the world of nonprofit. And really the thing behind that was that I'm a marketer I'm a really good marketer. But the reality was that UPS was going to make another $1 billion of revenue with or without Lisa Bowman sitting there. And that was just a fact. And so if I was going to use my marketing skills for a bigger purpose, I really wanted to do it in a way that some person somewhere I was never going to meet was going to have a better tomorrow because of the work that I did either today or yesterday. And that was a pivot because there's a very big difference going from a private sector company to the nonprofit world. Um, and I think that navigating that was a real learning experience for me.
And I can see why Lan Fan of Community of Seven has you within her network and made the recommendation that you guest on our show. There's a lot of similarities there with respect to philosophy, outreach, give back, connection, purpose, and just personal values, doing what you feel is right. You've earned the opportunity to be able to do that. And why shouldn't you be able to hold to the things that are important to you?
Totally agree with that. You know, I tease Lan all the time that I'm the biggest Lan fan, playing off of her name. I think I'm going to see if I can get that as a trending hashtag on Twitter.
I'll help
Um,
you.
right?
Let's
Come
go.
on. But yeah, I like to surround myself with people that have similar values. And, you know, Lan always talks about the fact that you are the average of the five people you spend the most time with. And I look at that as a little bit of an extension because you have different circles of five. You know, you have your circle of five that when you need a good swift kick in the butt, these are the people you go to. You need a circle of five that when you need to talk through a problem, right? These are your five that you count on. And so I think it's that intersection of all of those circles of five that really contribute to who you are. I've got different sets of people that I go to for different things, but I do always know when I need a positive affirmation for the day. Lana's one of those people that I would count as a ride or die on that.
Indeed, she is. Oh, absolutely. All right. Talking about when you need those boosts in those days. So you did a nice job here of setting me up.
Good.
What is the hardest thing you've ever had to do, Lisa? Whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Laurelyn, that's it's a good question, and I will tie that back to a very recent experience that I had. I went through a very difficult time in my last role at United Way, where I was subjected to harassment and subsequently retaliation, which ended in termination as part of that retaliation. That in and of itself was difficult to go through, but I think that while I would not have chosen that experience for anything in the world, I truly believe that that experience chose me because I did dig deep and find the fortitude to go public and share that experience in the hopes that I would be able to inspire others to stand up against that kind of behavior or find their voice when confronted with a similar situation, to not sit back and be silent. And while that was probably one of the toughest experiences of my life, in many ways, I'm very grateful for that experience because I found an inner strength that I didn't know that I had. And it was a blessing in disguise, if you will.
Having gone through that experience, would you want to go back and change it? In fact, would you want to go back and change anything in your past given the chance?
Oh, um, you know, yes and no. And I say that because while it was a horrifying experience to go through, I am glad that I went through it because I see things and see what a huge problem it is. I think that the only thing that I would change is how I approached it. And candidly, I would not have placed hindsight always being 2020. I would not have placed as much trust on the organization to do the right thing and follow their own policy as I did. That was probably the single biggest mistake that I made, was in trusting them to handle it appropriately, and they didn't. So I think I would have taken steps to protect myself first before I followed the policy.
As countless examples like yours and so many other stories emerge and become increasingly public, this notion of psychological safety and the onus of responsibility that companies have to create that environment for their workers, I think it's just starting to enter the conversation. Where do you think we are?
I think that it really is kind of wide open territory because there's this notion of psychological safety and what is the contract, if you will, between the employer and the employee to provide that safe workspace. But with COVID, that's morphed into a whole new thing with safety and the return to work. What is the obligation of the employer, and how do you manage when an employee isn't comfortable coming back? That's opened up, I think, a whole new level of discussion about what that obligation is. Even when you go into a retail establishment these days, for me, like I can't help but notice the big signs that are to protect legal liability. You are entering at your own risk. If you catch COVID and die from coming in and getting a burger, that's not on us, that's on you. It's a whole new world, but I do believe that employers do have a responsibility to protect their employees, and whether that's protecting them from people internally or protecting their health and safety as we all navigate the return to the office, whatever that's going to look like. I believe that there's a level of responsibility that's incumbent upon the employer.
Absolutely. I think we're just starting to see this emerge now. We'll see how it plays out in the months ahead. All right, let's turn the tables. You've given us tremendous insight and tips here. How can our audience help you, Lisa?
Oh, great question. If I can be helpful to somebody, if somebody is struggling with the same situation that I went through, I'm here for you.
Excellent. And that's really the whole ethos behind this podcast. It's not only gals helping gals, because we have some men on here too, cis and trans. It's people helping people. Everybody needs a hand once in a while. And so that's fantastic. Thank you for that generous offer. Last question, Lisa. If we peeked into your closet and we found a pair of shoes that really represented your personality, is it going to be a pair of boots, stilettos, sneakers, flats, flip-flops, or something else?
It is absolutely a pair of stilettos. I may just top 5 feet. So I have a closet full of stilettos. And as I like to say, I walk on 5-inch heels so that I can help others stand tall as well.
Oh, excellent. We love that. We like people of all shapes and sizes. I'm one of those gals. I like being tall too. When I put my stilettos on, I'm well over 6 feet and it's kind of fun.
I love it that you'll embrace that as a taller girl too.
Oh, sure. Why not? All right.
Absolutely.
So with that, thank you very much to Lisa Bowman here, Chief Mojo Officer of Marketing Mojo. Thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?